Okay, so hello, I'm back here. We finished the noisy part. Well, it's all a little bit noisy. It's a small brewery. We finished the noisy part of milling the milk, the grain for today's brew. Tell you a little bit about, continue telling you a little bit about the brewery. We did 1.1, roughly 1.1 million liters of ready beer in 2021. Our yearly capacity, if we really use it to the full, is probably about 1.5 to 1.8 million liters. It sounds like a lot because it's a million liters, but the brewers will understand that this is a very small capacity. A big mass brewery would easily do that amount in a matter of a couple of days. So we are still a very small brewery. Craft beer in Ukraine is developing. We were not the first, but we were one of the first breweries in Ukraine. Now we have a lot more breweries joining the craft beer movement. Probably well over 50, 60. It's at least the number of brewers that visit our craft beer and vinyl music festival, which we did twice a year. In a normal pre-war conditions, we would do that in the middle of May and sometime in September. Once we did it in August, which is a huge, pretty big event, hosting between 10 and 20,000 beer lovers over a long weekend. You remember when we did 9 festivals. We were going to organize the number 10 festival on the 13th, 14th, and 15th of May this year, and that was going to be number 10. We'll probably have to hold on with that and do the important things first. Just cleanse the country from the enemy. And come back to normal life of rebuilding the country if you talk about the share of craft brewing, it depends a lot on how you define what craft brewery is and what not. But we are probably, if you really look at brewers that don't filtrate, don't pasteurize, so make small batches, have a good attention to the product, we are probably together not even reaching 1%, whether it's measured in liters or whether it's measured in money. But it's developing. It's more and more. It was more and more showing in the menus of good restaurants that take care of not only providing good food and good location, but also providing good beer experience. On Pravda, we don't pasteurize our beer. We don't filtrate our beer. Our final product is packaged into bottles of 0.33 liters and also in champagne bottles, 0.75. We also use cans, which we don't own, but we rent a canning machine, which comes here to the brewery, and we can the beer straight off the fermenter. All our bottles, the glass bottles, all undergo secondary fermentation within the bottle. This is a process which is a bit on the expensive side. It takes more time, takes more logistics. We bottle beer totally flat into our bottles, but we add a little bit of new sugar, priming sugar. It's normally also called invert sugar, simple form of it. And we use re-fermentation yeast, which does not change the nature of the beer, but it eats the invert sugar and creates several things, actually. It creates carbonization, so it's natural gas which saturates the beer inside the bottle, so each bottle becomes a small fermenter. Then it also it eats oxygen out of the whichever there is a remaining oxygen bit on the top of the bottle where the air still comes in, although we try to protect it from this. But still our bottling line is pretty basic bottling line. It's a German line for flat drinks. It can be used for bottling still wine. Can be used for bottling any still drink, like even a juice. It cannot bottle carbonated drinks, so we actually pouring flat beer into bottles, but with added sugar and the fermentation yeast. It goes straight after bottling. It goes into a warm room, and it stays there for 2 or 3 weeks, depending on the type of beer. For heavier alcohol beers, it takes longer to re-ferment. For basic beers, from the alcohol point of view, it takes about 2 weeks, sometimes even 12 days to fully re-ferment and be ready. As I said, this warm room needs to be dark. It needs to be uniformly heated, so you have to avoid it being colder at the floor or warmer at the top. You have to mix the air in it, so it's always between 23 and 24 degrees Celsius. And then for heavier beers, it's about 3 weeks, and then only then the beer is labeled on a very basic Italian labeling machine, and it's a self-adhesive labels. We don't have the one with the glue, and we sometimes have very small batches from barrels, and these are like sometimes it's like 2 to 3 to 4 hundreds of bottles, and these are labeled with the hand. On the types of beers we make, we started 7 years ago with a naive, at the pretty early stage of the Ukrainian craft revolution, expecting to brew 4 to 5 main beers, and once in a while, maybe twice a year, do a seasonal beer, one-off, and that was our intention. But quickly learned the hard way that people in Ukraine, Ukraine has the historical tradition of Ukrainian beer is not as long and strong as Belgium or the UK or the US or the Czech or the German tradition. So we, as one of the first beer makers, craft beer makers in the country, our mission was to open people's minds to fancy beers of the world, because in the post-Soviet country, people are used to specific types of beer. They're used to like having a basic blonde lager, maybe a dark beer, maybe a stronger beer, and wheat beer, which would be everybody would uniformly call unfiltered. But as we all know, the variety of beer in the world is very wide. You have Flemish red ales, you have sour beers, you have heavily hopped American style beers, you have barley wines, you have a whole variety of British beers, including cask beer. You have exotic, more exotic German beer styles. You can have a real Berliner Weiss, you can have a Märzen, you can have a Bamberg style Rauch beer. These beers were largely unknown here in Ukraine. Kölsch beer, Bock beer, etc. Most of these beers were not very much known in Ukraine. And I'm happy that my colleagues from the craft movement in Ukraine, all the breweries of the country, by the way, who really strongly joined our joint movement about this Brew for Ukraine movement, asking the international brewers to brew Ukrainian recipes, to use Ukraine's symbols, Brew for Ukraine, to support the Ukrainian army, to support the humanitarian relief effort that's really like flooding the country. People are really trying to help, local people trying to help, and we see and we are very thankful that actually there is not a country in the world that would be passing on this effort and not doing anything to help, whether it's taking refugees, whether it's collecting money, collecting medicine products, helmets, military protection, etc. So all of us Ukrainian small craft brewers, they started this effort to basically educate people that there is more to beer than only a couple of things that you are used to. Yeah, and we are very, as organizers of craft vinyl and craft beer and vinyl music festival, we are happy to see the variety of beers that people bring into our festival. Now, remember that Ukraine is the biggest country in Europe, fully in Europe geographically. Why this matters is that this size provides us with big geographical and hence botanical variety of climatic zones. We have almost subtropics in the south, temporarily occupied by Russia. We have a kind of desert also in the south of Ukraine. We have the Carpathian Mountains, and thanks to them being pretty continental, deeper in the continent, they're not very high mountains, like 2,000, a little bit more. I think there are 4 or 5 mountains which are a little higher than 2,000 meters, but still, climate-wise, it's pretty. It's to my unprofessional eye, it's probably similar to mountains from the climate point of view, to 3.5 thousand meters in the Alps, because they are more Mediterranean, more closer to the warm streams of air from the Gulf Stream and warm air movements. So because of this climatic variety, we have a lot of vegetables, a lot of fruits, spices, berries growing in the country, and we and many other Ukrainian brewers are now happily searching, reconstructing what was brewed here before with honey, or what was brewed here with beer in previous times, 100, 200, 300, 400 years ago, trying to understand what kind of our light drink tradition is a legacy of Czech people here or German people, and what part is a local legacy. We are predominantly a grain country, so we do have vineyards in the west of the country, in the Transcarpathian area, and also in the south, in Odessa, Mykolaiv, and Kherson area, and also in Crimea. So in some areas, wine is the drink of is the choice of a table drink because it's basically more accessible to have your sugars for your table drink from wine. Most of the country is a grain country. It's one of the journalist cliches about Ukraine is it's a bread basket of Europe, which in fact it started to become last year's. The export of grains from Ukraine grew every year over the last 5 or 7 years. So it's mostly in most of the country, grain is a easier and cheaper choice for sugar for your table drink compared to wine. So we are pretty much a beer country. We also have big malt houses, malt factories. As the brewer part of you know, you cannot brew beer just with barley. You have to first germinate the barley for some days, and then you wait until it really germinates with a little green bit, and then you stop the germination by heating it and by stopping the humidity. So you basically dry it, yeah, and that is called malt. It looks like barley, but it's lighter because it's more dried. But this is something then that actually then provides starches and eventually sugars for the brew. From the point of view of recipes and beer styles, because we are a Ukrainian brewery, we are not a Czech style brewery or American style brewery. We are basically doing two-step development in our heads. Yeah, one of the steps is to first master the main international beer styles, the ones that we all know, from simple lager to a Belgian triple, to imperial stout, to Baltic porter, West Coast IPA, West Coast US style IPA, East Coast North England styles, which are much more aromatic and less bitter. German styles, our head brewer, who now has to be, for those of you who missed the introduction in the half an hour ago, our head brewer, Igor Chertov, he needs to be at the military training ground today as part of the civil defense forces. A big part of our brew team is there now. He was educated in Berlin, in one of the good, probably one of the world's best brewing schools in Berlin. So he's also influenced by the German approach of being very exact and having very clean beers, crispy styles of Germany. We also do Czech style beers, but that's all mastering how to brew the basic styles is only one part of the equation. It took us years to actually understand the basics of brewing. One of our first brewers, actually our second brewer in our history, we now have brewer number 3, Igor Chertov, at the military training ground. Our first brewer was Elisabeth Lesoir, a very nice Belgian lady. She's now back to Belgium she had to leave us within half a year from opening for family reasons, but she's really helped us initially to sort out the basic things. Then we brewed for a month, we brewed ourselves, but we felt we needed a professional high-level brewer, so we I started asking around friends in Europe who knows maybe a good brewer or already existing brewer in Belgium. And we ended up talking to Corey McGuinness. He's still sleeping. He's probably in the middle of his sleep I guess, in New York. He's going to be joining us in a couple of hours. Corey is really helping us now, waking up the American craft beer community, helping them to understand what situation in Ukraine is, mobilizing people, asking brewers to join the Brew for Ukraine movement now. We really thank Corey for this effort. And now we have as you can understand, our inspiration, our initial technological inspiration about the cleanness of your beer and about the balance of your beer, it comes from Belgium. Then we are also influenced by the German beer heritage, thanks to Igor's being educated there. And actually also Germany is a short one and a half hour flight from here. So it's very easy to, well, it was very easy very recently to hop on the plane and go to Munich to understand their beer culture. Now I have to leave you for 5 to 7 minutes to talk to journalists, and I leave Dima here with you. Ask your questions online and we will try to answer them. I'll be back with you in about 10 minutes.
Yeah. Now the meshing process. We have something around half an hour to the next step. It will be next pause and a temperature of 77 degrees, 78. Now I took a measure of pH of our mesh, and it's 5.35, which is really okay. So the process goes in the right way. So in the same time, we're preparing the sparging water for. because the viewer said we can't use our hot water tank now. That's why we're preparing it in a boiling kettle.
Hey, Dima. You heard me?
Треба буде ще гаряча вода.
Hey,
Hi, nice to see you.
nice to see you too.
Start with the very first head brewer of us now in contact, Elizabeth Lesoir. Yeah.
The connection is not so good, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, I see you. I see you very good.
Yeah.
Whereabouts are you, Elizabeth?
Who is it? Oh,
Whereabouts are you based, Elizabeth?
Hello?
Yep. Whereabouts are you based?
Yeah.
Are you in the Ukraine or?
No. I'm in Belgium.
Ah,
Yeah. I'm in Belgium. I work now for another brewery in Belgium.
but you used to work for Pravda.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm based. No.
ah.
I'm just thinking we might have to take that tabletop to the tip again. A bit of a shape. But I reckon there'll be an odd bit of wood up there as well. Try and get.
myself.
Yeah, it's different. Spending your day, are we?
Huh?
Is that spending your day?
Well, I'm waiting for Ben to turn up so we can do the changes to the label. But yeah, that's basically how I'm spending my day.
That tabletop, you don't want it, do you?
Huh?
You don't want the tabletop, do you?
No.
Okay, we'll drop that straight to the tip.
Good evening from Australia to England.
Good morning, world, from Salt Lake City, Utah.
Cheers.
Hey, I'm back here. It's freezing cold outside in Lviv. Liz, hello,
Hello.
Liz. So
Hello,
we have
Yuri.
our first brewer of Pravda Brewing, Elizabeth Lesoir. She's joined us. Hello, Liz. Where
Hello,
are you?
Yuri. Not bad. Very well. And you? I think about you every day.
Thank you. And you are in the south of Belgium now. Are you preparing to open the brewery?
Oh, no, no, open. It's 11 here. So it's the brewery, it's open.
Okay. Okay. So just reminding those people who joined us a little bit later, we are brewing a kind of, it's a Belgian blonde beer. Our idea is a little bit Liz, you will quickly understand what this beer is. It's a little bit like a monk's table beer, Belgian style. A little bit. It's like maybe a bit of inspiration comes from Westmalle Extra, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's like a table beer between 4.5% and maybe 4.8% with a distinct yeast character.
Yeah.
European hops. We're gonna use just refresh the memory for everyone. We're gonna use pale malt, spelt, and rye. And we're gonna use 3 hops. It's Syrian Golding, Saaz, and Perle. Pretty neutral. Hope for this to be a balanced beer. As I said, as I wrote, this is we feel 2 things brewing today. One thing is like, okay, maybe it's not the best time to brew. We are in a country in war. We have to really sort out important things. We have to gain our freedom back. We have to kick out the enemy from the country. We have to really inflict as much losses to them so they never come back here. This is a total unification and mobilization of the country now going on. So on one hand, we thought, okay, maybe it's not the right time. On the other hand, we are brewers. This is our profession. This is why we opened 7 years ago to brew beer. This is what we can do. Our team we have actually now we are much more professional, honestly, compared to the time when we opened. When we opened, it was like a bunch of weird people in a way, because I was in agriculture most of my life and management. Dima was a professional. Swimmer and marathon runner, still is. Another guy was a barista, and another guy was trading oil as a oil trader, and we all started to put our effort together to open the brewery. First year or 2, we were really learning the hard ways, sometimes losing batches, not too much, but still did. We were really trying to sort out our water, because Lviv, the water is pretty hard, which is good for some beers, not good for some other beers. By the way, only 6 months into our existence, I think this was the end of summer 2015. We sent some beers to the Brussels Beer Challenge competition, and we're very surprised to learn that our Ukrainian Imperial Stout, the beer, the heavy international stout, big stout, anything between 9 to 10% alcohol. It won our first medal in our history, only half a year or maybe, I don't know, 6 to 8 months into our existence. It won a bronze medal at Brussels Beer Challenge, our first medal. It was later confirmed by a silver medal there. And this actually, the reason I'm telling this is, of course, I want to brag about the medals, which is a natural thing. But another thing is that it demonstrates how good Lviv water is for this type of beer. In fact, it's really the beers, darker beers, heavily hopped beers. They really come out very well with natural Lviv water. We don't treat water, our tap water, for the purposes of doing beers like Red Eyes, our American Red Ale, Obama Stout, which is a foreign kind of export stout style beer with 6.2% alcohol, and also for Imperial Stout. Yeah. So on one hand, we feel like not the best time for this. On the other hand, once you go through the initial shock of being in a war, your mentality changes, and you also at some point of time you really come back to your essence of your profession. You want to. We actually, as I said, we do hope that we're going to drink this beer in the country that won the war. But with all the uncertainty that we are surrounded with, this may take longer. Still, this batch is an act of hope, and it's also an act of unification of international brewers from around the world. I know we have people here from Australia, we have people from Belgium, we have people from the US. We have more people who will be joining as US wakes up. It's very early morning there. We will have, as I said, we'll have Corey McGuinness joining in about in a couple of, maybe in 1 hour or so. I thank you for all people who joined. I'll tell you about a couple of breweries that gave us inspirations over our 7 years history. Actually, Pravda started with it's almost a local legend, but it's also a true local legend. I once, when I still worked as a corporate rat in the big multinational companies, I had once a business trip to Brussels to one of the European Commissions on agriculture, and in one of the small cafes in the city center, which is a touristic cafe. It's a Bochenel Kelder. It's really virtually 10 meters from the Manneken-Pis in Brussels. It's a touristic place, but it has a good respect for good beers, in spite of being right in the middle of the touristic attractions of Brussels. I looked at the menu and I saw one of the beers called Taras Bulba, and Taras Bulba is actually something written by Mykola Gogol, a Ukrainian writer, and it tells the story about difficult Ukraine and Poland relations at that time, and telling actually about the angry father who was very unhappy with his son because the son fell in love and married a Polish woman. And actually, Taras Bulba Belgian label, it's a beer from Brasserie de la Seine. It actually plays with this story, and it plays with the bilingual situation in Belgium when a Flemish father is unhappy with his son dating a French-speaking Wallonian girl. So And I tried that beer in Poshanel Calder in Brussels, and I thought, yeah, that's actually drew my first attention because of the label. And eventually it drew my attention as a customer. I love the fresh and interesting taste of this beer. I don't think I've tried a beer like that before, in spite of the fact that I really was trying different beers in different places. And I thought, okay, I should see if I can find this brewery. And many brewers, they are not very happy when beer enthusiasts really come over and take the brewery time by asking too many questions and everything. And I was one of those beer enthusiasts coming and trying to talk to Bernard and Ivan, the owners of the Brasserie de la Seine brewery. But eventually we became good friends. And when at some point of my corporate career, I decided to do my own business and started to think what kind of business this can be. I thought, okay, maybe, you know, I love beer and I miss good beer, good European style craft beer in Ukraine. We did have a more traditional Czech style craft breweries. Czech Republic is not very far from here. So we had here in the Lviv in West Ukraine and in Kiev, we had and we still have brew pubs that are heavily relying on the Czech heritage, but we wanted to do a little bit more of varieties, a bit more different beers. And then eventually, actually thanks to Taras Bulba, which triggered my thoughts and triggered my taste, I decided to open a craft brewery. And I proposed opening this craft brewery to my friends who by that time already had a chain of restaurants in Ukraine. And we decided to go for this together. And in the end of 2014, we opened after half a year of renovation in the city center, after putting the brewing equipment in there. We opened without actually believing how this is all coming together finally after a couple of years of learning and preparation. And I'll tell you one funny moment, which I'm sure Elizabeth remembers. Just when we were about to send the started to mill the grains, suddenly a piece of metal equipment, thanks to my naughty hands, you know, I dropped a piece of metal into the grain.
Yes.
And and we could not we could not continue milling because this would really break the milling machine. So what we did, we had to disassemble the bunker where we had the grains. We had to put all the grains on the ground and really with our
inside,
hands.
yeah.
And Elizabeth was the most attentive of our crowd, and we found that piece of metal, and we could continue. We could put back everything and continue. If we would not launch the brew at that moment when all the Czech team was in and all the Belgian team was in, I don't know if we would really open by now. This was chaotic. This was intensive. This was nervous, and I think we messed up with the yeast eventually. But still, we will all remember these interesting moments. Yeah, we had lots of funny moments in a way at that time. I have one more story that goes back, I think, to 2015. We started to work with traditional European hops because that's what we were used to. And once we got a bit more comfortable with them, we said, okay, let us follow the trend and try to get some more exotic American hops in. And we asked our distributor from Holland to send us some hops, more exotic aromatic hops, and they sent it to a small town on the border of Ukraine. And one of our employees, she went by car to Poland with her own business, and she said, "I'll just put it in the bag." And she was going back, and she was searched by the border guys, and the border guys said, "We cannot let you through with this. We have to confiscate this. First of all, it's some green stuff. It looks like dry botanicals, and it comes from Holland. So we're not sure we're going to let it in anyway. And it smells strange, Although it was packed in vacuum bags, it was still was very suspicious. So they confiscated this. It was summer, and we hated this idea of good, expensive hops to be stuck somewhere in the warehouse. So we eventually had them confiscated, and I was started to think, okay, what I can do with it. We could not really get it, buy it out, or somehow save it, because it was already part of the kind of border evidence. It was photographed. It was everything was already in their books. So, but then we talked to a guy. Let's call it a lawyer. And this whole story actually demonstrates the situation Ukraine was in kind of corruption things at that time. We knew that this hops would be stuck there for forever, and we never got them back. And in warm climate, it would be deteriorating with every day and every week. So we asked advice for some people close to the border service. They said, okay, well, what you can do, you can replace those hops with something that looks similar, really similar. Okay, so we Googled what looks similar to hop pellets, and one of our colleagues, she went to buy some rabbit food. And if you Google how rabbit food looks like, it looks like really like pelletized hops. And then this lawyer organized a kind of replacement. So we got our hops, but the rabbit food went there in similar bags. We were very happy to receive the hops, but that's not the end of the story. The funny end of the story is that in about a month, I received a call from some kind of obscure representative of the border service at that time, and said, you are a brewer, you might need this. We are selling very good American hops, and maybe you want to buy them. When I looked at the list of hops, I understood that this is not actually hops. So I called friends, small brewers of this city, and said, don't ask me questions. You don't ask me any questions. Just don't buy the nice, cheap American hops when they ask you to buy it. And that is about the end of the story. It was like 6.5 years ago, and it really shows how, let's say, how unhealthy attitudes of the border service prevailed at that time. I wouldn't say that it completely changed, but it really has gotten a lot better since then. Let us go on with the brew. Can you tell us where you are at the moment?
At the moment now, right now, we are heating our mash to the cutoff. It started 2 minutes ago. So just heating to the next step.
So I join you in a couple of minutes then. Bear with Dima. He can speak English and German. Okay, so we are
Там я примерно разную там флеш
mesh підігріваємо.
знаєш, перебуваємо до останньої паузи.
А як
У нас, звичайно, у нас тільки 2 паузи. Паузи, 50 хвилин, 64 градуси. 77 воно догріває до 68.
Okay, so we're heating our mesh now. It's now at 70 degrees Celsius, and we are going to heat it to 77, 78, which is going to be the cutoff temperature. For those who just joined, Europe is waking up. America is not yet, but for those who just joined, we are brewing the Victory Brew. Dima Antonov is the brewer today. The head brewer, Igor Shetov, is now at the military training camp, learning how to handle shooting in the military camp. This beer is going to go into bottles, and because we re-ferment off all our bottles, this beer is going to be ready in 5 to 6 weeks from now. And we express our hope that this beer will already be drunk by us and our friends in the country that has by that time won the war. As I said, we do have a bit of a confusion between having other priorities and brewing beer. This is what we used to do and what we want to do. But it's a very decisive moment now for the Ukrainians to mobilize, to do what we can, to use our experience, our energy, our efforts to focus on winning this war. the money for this brew will be devoted to humanitarian relief and to basically Lviv is now the city of normal population with between 800 and 900,000 people is now hosting 200,000 people. So we grew in population by 20 to 25%. The railway stations are crowded. Fortunately, it's pretty well organized how to handle people. We have hundreds of volunteers working at the railway station, handling families, driving them to safer places compared to the railway station, feeding the refugees and displaced families, helping them to board trains or cars to reach the border and cross through the border to Poland. Now, what I want to tell you, you guys, those watching from anywhere but Ukraine, is you have to realize it's not only Ukrainian war. Okay, we are not part of NATO at this point of time, and this is. But you should not be deceived by this. We are still fighting the Ukrainian war because we have to fight it for ourselves, for our families, and for our future. But this, we are now 70 kilometers from the Polish border. I used to be cycling across the border to the city of Przemysl to have a beer and come back with the train. And this cycling took me about 3 hours. So we had 3 hours of a peaceful ride with a bicycle to the European Union. And we are in war, and the airports as close as 30 kilometers from here were also targeted by the Russian bombs in the first hours of the attack. So the war is next to your border. And this is also the war for countries like Taiwan, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Moldova, Finland. Actually, any democracy is at risk if Russia wins. That's not gonna happen. Ukrainians are fighting like lions. It's been unexpected by everyone. But on the other hand, we've been fighting this war not only over the last 12 or 13 days. We are fighting this war since 2014. This war started by annexation of Crimea and invasion of Donbass. This war was a concealed war because it was presented by Russian-driven media as an internal conflict between pro-Ukrainian Ukrainians and pro-Russian Ukrainians, which is a total bullshit. This war of Russia and Ukraine and Russia started in 2014. It cost us 15,000 lives already. And that's the war we are, and this war has only become very visibly Russian-Ukrainian only 13 days ago. But we were talking about this for 8 years. This is the war that is 8 years old. And this is the war of white and black. It's never been a situation which is so clear evil against the good. And Ukraine is on the good side. It's a young democracy, but it is a democracy. We have a democratically elected president. We can agree or disagree with him, but it's not now the time of agreeing or disagreeing within the country. The country, because of its big size and specifics of its history, the country has 2 languages. The country has several religions. It's a big-sized country. And it's far less uniform compared to, for example, Poland, which is more mono country united around its language, around also united around the Catholic Church. We are Orthodox and Greek Catholic, we are Ukrainian speaking and Russian speaking. And in my 50 years, I don't remember such a unique and tremendous unification from north to south, from east to west, as it's happening now. It's sad and tragic times, but it's also our chance. You don't build the nation by surrendering. You don't build the nation of doing nothing. You don't build the nation by just being submissive to the enemy. This is a big nation-building moment. As I said, it will change the geopolitics of the world. It might mark the end of Russia we know it. And we should remember Russia is a collection of territories that were conquered by the sword, blood, and many bigger and smaller wars. And Russia was thinking that it could easily get away with attacking the Ukrainians at their home, in their home country. That is not going to happen. We are not going to surrender. They're going to win this war. And this is what we are already doing. This war costs Russia $20 billion a day. And it costs them 1,000 people a day. It costs them tanks, it costs them armored vehicles, helicopters, and airplanes. And they are already disorientated. They're already lost. They did not expect such a huge resistance, and also they did not expect the Ukrainian army to be that prepared and that adamant in giving the answer to the enemy. The city where I grew up is now attacked. It's Kyiv. Yeah, I was born in Lviv, but I grew up in Kyiv. And when I hear the news about the attack to the TV station or to the attack of Babin Yar Memorial, which is largely a memorial to the Jewish tragedy of the Second World War, this is my city, and this is actually some of the groups of the enemy. Somehow, in the first days of the war, they reached Obolon. This is the area in the north of Kyiv where I think I lived there for 2 years. And this is so ridiculous to believe that the Russians can win in Kyiv, or to believe that they can win in Ukraine. Every stone, every kid, every house, every tree will be fighting them to the end. And that's not going to happen. They may already start to realize this, but it will probably take them and unfortunately Ukrainians more victims and more suffering before they fully understand this and get their troops and weapons out of here. The Ukrainians have a very clear feeling that the referendum of voting for leaving the USSR in 1991 was a fantastic event. I think over 90% of Ukrainians voted for leaving the USSR and for forming an independent country of Ukraine. And we already, at that time, we already were a little bit naive to think that should be enough, that unification should be enough. But when you have such a neighbor with so much blood on their hands over hundreds of years of their history, that's too naive to think like this. Then we thought that we would be on a good way and safe enough to win the Orange Revolution in 2000s. Then we were naive enough to think that we already are on a fully good way in 2014, when we had Maidan in Kyiv, when we lost hundreds of people in street protests and actually overturned the fugitive president Viktor Yanukovych. But obviously this was not enough. The price we paid those years is now paid by warriors, by civilians, by children. We are losing the best people of Ukraine. We are losing civilians in Sumy, around Kyiv, because the enemy really tries to attack the capital of the country. It's almost a Freudian effort, because Russia, in many ways, it was one of the biggest historical con jobs when the country like Russia steals the identity of Ukraine, and actually in suppressing Ukraine, attacking Ukraine, tries to exterminate the victim, or actually the historical memory of their job. Even the name of Russia is coming from Kyiv Rus, the ancient country with the center in Kyiv. Without Ukraine, without Kyiv, Russia is a naked entity. It's stripped of its identity, which it has been building on for centuries. That's why Kyiv is so important. It's almost like a DNA, which they imagined for themselves. So that's why it's it's not a fight for resource. It's not a fight for oil or gas or gold or something like this. It's a fight for identity. Identity of the Russians is actually a fake identity. The identity of Ukrainians here in a country that is so incredibly unified now, a country that loves its land and is going to protect it to the last man and to the last soldier and to the last human being, is far more important for us because it's part of our everything. And that's why the enemy is not fighting. As I said, it's not fighting the Ukrainian army, it's fighting every single person. Even we as brewers are either making Molotov cocktails or undergoing military training to be ready if the enemy comes here to our door. But that's not going to happen. Back to our brewing day. It's almost 1:00 p.m. here in Ukraine. We are still continuing to heat. It's almost
cut off all the ends.
Okay.
We have 3 minutes, and then we start to pump to filter.
Okay. So we are almost finishing the mashing thing for the non-brewers. For non-brewers watching, quick explanation of the process. One of the tanks, we are basically making a porridge, a mixture of milk, grain, and hot water. Next step is we transfer that mixture into this so-called filter tank. And there it's basically going to go through the false bottom through small holes in the bottom and separate the grain, which is by that time when it's separated, it should have already totally given out the sugars and other elements to the water. And then the water is called wort, and it's a basis for beer. It's a sweet sugar extract from grain. And then it's going to be boiled in one of the tanks behind my back. After here, yeah, it's going to be boiled now. Okay, so it will be boiled in the same tank as the mashing. Will be boiling for 1.5 hours. And then when it's boiled, it's also we will be adding hops when it's boiled. The hops are providing beer with a bit of protection in terms of microbiology. It also gives beer the bitter taste and also gives it the specific hop aroma. And once we boil it, we will have the liquid called wort, which is sweet because it has sugars from grains, and bitter because it has the bitter esters from other elements from hops. And then we will be sending this wort to one of the fermenters, adding yeast. The yeast will eat sugars and provide and create alcohol and bubbles. Okay, in this case, eventually after a couple of weeks, we'll be releasing all the carbon dioxide from the beer because, as I mentioned, we are going to re-ferment this beer in every bottle. We are not yet. Because we have a longer period of time now for creating the label, we have not thought yet about how the label will look like, but it will definitely be a special sort of label. First of all, this is the beer we have not brewed before, and second, this is a beer brewed in a wartime. It will be bottled because the bottles, as I said, takes 2 to 3 weeks to re-ferment. And second, if the beer is ready in 3 weeks and it's not in the bottle but just ready in the tank, we will not be able to drink it because it's prohibition of selling alcohol now in the country. It's not good time to sell alcohol. You have to be mobilized. Your mind has to be clear. You don't want people which are people are all nervous. People are worried, and they don't want anyone to use alcohol as means to come down or overuse it or cope with stress with this with alcohol. I mentioned that we brew this recipe first time now. Generally, we have brewed over 300 recipes in our history. 2020 and 2021 were years where we brewed, especially in off season, in winter time, we brewed a lot of creative beers because when before the COVID pandemics, we brewed, we basically brewed many varieties. We maybe brewed our top 15 sorts of beer because we had big demand and we were really trying to satisfy the base beer demand. But with COVID, we were closed as our restaurants were closed. So we had time to really create things. So we have a large brew team, it's about 25 people. That's consisting. It's all people. The packaging team, which is bottling, the guys who package beer into kegs, the lab, the brewers, the assistant brewers, and every craft brewer is has this special beer that he or she wants to brew when the time comes. I'm still running around with the idea to brew some of my favorite special beers. Yeah. So we have a board in our office upstairs here where everyone can write down his or her favorite beer. And believe me, like the winter of 2021 last year, and also October, November, and December this year, we really brewed a lot of fancy beers that we always wanted to brew but never had time. I started half an hour ago. I started talking about two steps that we as a brewery have to make to actually be happy with ourselves professionally. First, as I mentioned, to learn to brew common beer styles, the international beer styles, the top 5 or 10 being IPA or lager or wit beer, Belgian style, or Weizen beer, or porter, etc. But to us, it's good. It's actually very good to brew these beers because brewing means that you cover the base. Yeah, you cover your water. You know how to deal with it. You know how to compose it for each style. You know how to reach your cleanness in your maintenance of the brewery. You know how to bottle and in a clean, nice way. But that's not enough because that means you are only doing what everybody is doing. Yeah? And as I mentioned, that rich in all things botanical, vegetables, berries, spices, etc. A small craft brewer can and should use this. Our conviction is that it should be used on a good basis. First, you sort out the basics. And basically, we do make fancy beers. We do use fancy hops from New Zealand, from the US, from Australia, from anywhere. But you know, also, I mean, for the brewers who are watching, they would probably join me in saying that you judge another brewery by the most basic ale or by most basic blonde light lager, because that beer cannot be covered by spices or by hops which are too fancy. If you make mistakes in a basic beer, which is kind of naked in terms of its taste and aroma, when it's clean, when it's balanced, such base beer, then you can, of course, move on to super IPAs or double or triple IPAs or more thin-blend IPAs or fancy sours or imperial stouts infused with cherries or whatnot with other berries. But I do see this sometimes in the craft industry, not only in Ukraine but elsewhere, that people do overuse hops to the side of too much hops, of overuse, so that the balance of beer is already not there. So, but that's something that I think sometimes, you know, when you are just at the beginning of its way, you do make fancy things. You join the you know, even sometimes the names of your beer, they are so long because you try to really, you know, double dry hop, and you would like to make it a bit sour or mix it with sour, or you do the super fancy things, and that's kind of nice. But still, sometimes, you know, you still have cases when you drink a very hoppy beer, and when it gets a bit warmer, and then suddenly all the mistakes of the beer, the diacetyl or DMS or other things start getting into your nose, and you think, maybe, you know, instead of really going to the fancy spices, it's better to really invest time in sorting out the basic. It's like with a good piece of meat, you don't need spices, you know, you just maybe need some salt, maybe some pepper, but you don't need mayonnaise as a marinade. You know, orange juice to that. You know, if your meat is not good, then you might really use fancier spices and marinade to make it a bit, you know, hidden in a way. So a good base is important for us here. I wanted to say one of the beers. If Corey McGuinness joins, or maybe join, or will join soon, I just want to remember the beer we had. We once brewed beer with tobacco leaves. It was not a very heavy beer, alcohol-wise. It was like 6 plus degrees alcohol, but it did contain some tobacco in it because we used like real leaves of real big leaves of tobacco. And we the effects of this beer were a bit hilarious, you know, because you had 0.3, and you feel as if you really had like, I don't know, 5 beers, and you know, and this was an unexpected effect for us. Also want to I also remember a beer. Well, not we still have it on stock. One of the, because Ukraine last half a year before the war, it was a scene of development of restaurants, of good restaurant scene in Kyiv and in Lviv, and Asian restaurants became quite popular. So our head brewer Igor, he spent a month of his vacation. I think 2 years ago, he spent a month with his family in Thailand. And on his return from Thailand, he decided to brew beer called Tom Yum. It actually uses the spices used in Tom Yum soup in Thailand, which we all love. So we brewed a pale ale 4.4% alcohol, so it's still a kind of session beer from the alcohol point of view, but it contains halantau, lemongrass, red hot pepper, ginger, and something else. I forgot. It's at least 5 ingredients from Ghana, and it became a super hit with Asian restaurants. And it makes me think of this. You know, as I mentioned, we are Ukrainian brewers, so we did try a lot of local ingredients like thyme, wild thyme from the Carpathian Mountains. We used lots of berries like blackberry. We used cranberries for our beer. We used there is a tradition in Ukrainian villages with grandmothers. They want to preserve the plum harvest, and one of the ways to preserve plum harvest is to dry plums on. You burn. There is a special small house without windows, and at the bottom of the floor of this house they burn wood, and the smoke slowly goes up, and it goes through the layers of shelves, and there you have plums. So they are dried by smoking, and this is a very Ukrainian tradition. So one of our beers is called 100 Years. 100 Years. The name is a bit longer, but it's 100 years, and it's a solid imperial stout. But once we make the Ukrainian stout, we infuse this stout with these plums. Plus, also we infuse it with dry, with dry pears, and it provides you an explosion of taste, especially when you warm it up a little bit. So it's about 10% alcohol. The beer is pretty heavy, oily. It's very smoky, but it's not the smoke that you get from smoked malt, like you have Bamberg style Rauch beers, but this is much more delicate and fruity smoke that comes from smoked plums. And this beer, I'm giving you this beer as an example of some kind of approaching the Ukrainian style of beer, yeah? Because it's not just the mimicking the international imperial style, but it gives it a distinct Ukrainian character. It builds on the technology that's used in the villages, and it reflects something that grows here. It reflects something that people in the villages do to preserve their crops over longer winters that we have here. We have. I want to thank those who just joined. We are live streaming our brew of a beer. It's going to be a easy, drinkable beer. We are brewing this beer to celebrate our victory, future victory. No doubt we will win this war. So the style is going to be like easy table beer, and to show that our technological and our inspirational origin is partly from Belgium, because that's where we really got thinking about opening this brewery. We use Belgian yeast for this beer, so it's going to be a Belgian blonde beer of about 4.5% alcohol. We have journalists here all over the country. We just had an interview with BBC, with TV, BBC News live, freezing to almost to heavily freezing outside. It's about 0 degrees here in Lviv. Yesterday we had some snow. It's very windy, very cold, but here at the brew house it's a little bit warmer. Our future, that's our first brew of the Victory series that we have launched to ask brewers from around the world to join in, listen to us a little bit, to write to us our support, to donate. We as a brewery, just reminding those who joined recently, we as a brewery, we opened top recipes of our beers. And we opened our visual materials on our website, and we invite, we have the visuals like Sila, which means strength. On the label, it shows a destroyed Kremlin with the Ukrainian flag. We also opened our Putin Hulo label for everyone to use. We invite international brewers to use our recipes, to also to creatively rework those, to add some character, use them, brew the beers. If you want, you can use our visuals or use the visual Brew for Ukraine. And donate the proceeds partly or fully to the Ukrainian army, to our relief fund. We're going to use those donations to support some of those 200,000 people who arrived to Lviv, leaving their homes. It's mostly elderly people, women, kids who escaped the bombings of Kharkiv, Sumy, the Hostomel, Bucha, and other smaller cities around Kyiv and in this north and east Ukraine. The enemy is trying to surround Kyiv. It's getting beaten like a cockroach in the kitchen. It's really getting punished for thinking that they can come here with arms and try to conquer the Ukrainians. Ukrainians who were, this is the land of the Cossacks. It's the land of one of the first constitutions in history of the humankind. It's a strong country that's always been on the crossroad of big empires. It's the country that suffered a lot from the Russians already in the Holodomor, the artificial famine that took place in the beginning of the 30s. We were forcefully sucked into the Second World War, being part of the Soviet Union. Ukrainians died in millions in the Second World War. We were repressed in the years following the Second World War. Millions of Ukrainians died or otherwise perished in Gulag, in the Siberian prison camps. And we are now fighting the war for this to never happen again. And this will never happen again. We are not going to allow it. We are not going to let the enemy pass to our cities. Everybody is fighting, and we as small brewers, we are fighting. We are doing our small part. As I already mentioned, most of the brew team is now at the military training. Once we finish this brew, we will be preparing for. Yesterday there was a training of how to work with military walkie-talkies, how to have a good connection, how not to interfere with. Peaceful frequencies or frequencies that are used by medical emergencies, how to use the walkie-talkies, etc. Then there was a training of mines, how to handle mines which are anti-people or anti-vehicles, how to watch for troubling signs where the mines can be. What you do to disarm it, what you can do yourself, where you have to pull in the experts, the mining experts. Previous days we were trained in how to stop a car passing through a roadblock, how to do it in a safe way for you, not to get shot or get harmed. So we are pretty much being trained for, we hope for the best, prepare for the worst. And once we finish this brew, we let the yeast do its nice job, eating the sugars and creating beer. And we will be trained again when we get request from the civil defense forces. We will do Molotov cocktails again. Once we get the request from civil defense forces, we will make spiked roadblocks again. Otherwise, it's military training, preparing to defend our city. But we will have space for more brews. When the war started, which now to us, to Ukrainians, it seems like months ago, we don't notice days now. It's I have hard time to remember it's Tuesday today. I really remember this by looking at my phone or looking at the calendar. We are counting days of war rather than normal weekdays now. We were brewing pretty heavily before the war started because we were stocking up for the spring season. So most of our tanks are full with beer, which is almost ready or is about to be ready. We have a sizable stock for us, I mean, for a small brewery, a big stock of bottles in the warehouse. And we, of course, expect this war to finish soon because our armed forces, they do, and civilians, they do maximum to win. So we will have space in our fermenters for maybe 2 or 3 more batches, and we will be back online in some days to again invite the international brewers to join, even for 5 minutes, to say hello, to support us. We will soon try to answer questions. We will make a small break now, like 5 minutes break. For those of you who've been with us and plan to finish, thank you for watching. For those who are waking up in Europe or soon waking up in the US, hello, welcome to our Victory Brew, an act of hope that this beer we are brewing today is going to be ready in bottles in 5 to 6 weeks, and we're going to drink it in a victorious country. Back to you in about 5 minutes. Ще поросли.
Скажи, що зараз циркулює. Зараз іде циркуляція. The water is circulated right now, and filtration will start in 13 minutes, like this.
Okay, I promised you guys a bit of silence. I wanted to come back in 5 minutes, but I just cannot hold my emotions because I have here the response on the YouTube, and it's absolutely touching and tremendous response. Look at the geography. We have greetings from Finland. Okay. So check this out. We have greetings from Finland. Hello from Finland. We have hello from Switzerland. Hello, Christian. We have someone saying Vilna Ukraina, free Ukraine. We have our head brewer joining in YouTube comments. Probably he is on the way in the bus to the military training camp. Hello, Igor. We have greetings from Australia from Mike. We have greetings from Gdansk in Poland. We have we have Tomasz saying that he's been to our brewery in September 2015. It was very nice visit. Thank you, Tomasz. Come back when everything is settled down. We have greetings from Melbourne, from Down Under. We have hello and shalom from Tel Aviv. And we have greetings from Reunion Island. Luke, cheers, we will be in Reunion Island and I hope you'll be brewing there, you know. Reunion, can you guys, whoever wants to brew with us in the future to have collabs, please drop us a message in Instagram or in Facebook or anywhere you can find us, just drop us a message. Greetings from Hong Kong. I love Hong Kong. Been there 4 or 5 times and I really love it. Love the city. Lived on both sides, on the mainland, on the island, and I really want to come back there to Hong Kong. Again, greetings from Poland, greetings from New Hampshire, and Stormy Gleason agrees with me that the simplest beers are hardest to make. Of course, they are. And going to other comments. Okay, so what we are also planning to do. We as a brewery, we love collaborations. We did a collaboration with the brewery that inspired us to open. It's Pravda. We did collaborations here locally in Ukraine with Varvar Brewery, Corey McGinnis, our former brewer. We did a frequent ale, I believe, and I think this was a pale ale. I think the American style, which we did with Varvar. Our recent collaboration was with a brewery in Kyiv, near Kyiv, which is called Underwood Brewery. We actually, in Ukraine, we brewed Taras Bulba, the beer that actually got us started in thinking about opening the brewery. We did our Ukrainian version of this. A week ago, when the war already started, I was supposed to be in Brussels on the 3rd of March to brew another collaboration with Brasserie de la Seine in Brussels. We were supposed to brew Schive Tolos, which is a beer that already exists, I think, for 2 years. Last time we brewed it together in Brussels in February 2020, just weeks before the pandemics. And we intended to do it again. It was it's a very interesting beer. They loved it in Belgium. The brewery uses Ukrainian hops partly for this beer. And it gives this very interesting, distinct aroma of a little bit earthy, a little bit primitive, but that's the way hops were 40 or 50 years before. It was heavily selected and heavily managed into exotic aromas and everything. We also did some collabs here with some prominent Czech and Belgian brewers. And for this year, for 2022, we planned to have a tour of breweries in different countries, interesting breweries to brew with. And we will still come back to this idea as soon as we win this war. So we want to brew in Japan, we want to brew in the US together, we want to exchange our experiences with all good craft breweries all over the world. Reunion will be coming to this beautiful place, absolutely beautiful place, which I've not been to, but we even had once about a year ago, I looked at a brewery in Mauritius to try to have a collab with. So it's all also about interesting locations, interesting experience. It's about using local ingredients. It's about working on the border of styles. By the way, one of our beers here in the tanks, which is ready, it's not packaged yet. It's in the tank. It's the beer which is actually removing the border between beer and cider. Sugar-wise, it's a beer which is done with both grains, and 50% of sugar comes from grains, and 50% of sugars comes from local fresh apple juice. It looks like beer, but it also looks like cider. It tastes like beer, but it also tastes like cider. And this is something we love to do as a matter of experiment. We used to do some beers with the local Isabella wine grape variety. It's also interesting because it also gives you a bit of confusion. You are kind of not sure whether you drink beer or wine, but that's a fun thing. We are the winemakers and the cider makers and the mead makers and the brewers. We are still doing the same job. We are harvesting sugars somehow from the nature. Historically, it's harvesting it from the cheapest and most accessible way, and then guarding the yeast, actually shepherding the yeast into doing its job. We are not making beer. It's the yeast that are making beer, and we are almost a servant to the yeast. We have to make sure they are clean. There are no bad boys, bad microbiology getting in their way. We have to make sure that they are warm enough, but not too warm. We have to make sure that there are enough of them, but not too much. And we have to avoid that they are not enough. So we are actually a super yeast support team. Yeah. Or like Corey McGuinness likes to put it, we are glamorous cleaners, because we have to make sure the brewery is clean, the tanks are clean, the joints are clean, the hoses, everything, so that there is no bad microbiology that would hinder the yeast from being taken over by the bad boys. Well, talking about the bad boys, sometimes the bad boys are good boys. We couldn't resist. About a year ago, we could not resist, as we have many friends in Belgium, we really could not resist starting our spontaneous fermentation program. As I mentioned, in Ukraine, people do make wine, and some people do use wine barrels from oak to age their wines. About a year ago, or maybe a little less, we were always on a constant lookout for barrels from Ukrainian wine, but we didn't get much response from Ukrainian wineries because not many of them are really using wooden barrels until we got in touch with Serhiy Stachovsky. Serhiy Stachovsky is one of the top tennis players. He was, I think at his best, he was in the top 10 to 15 players of the world, beating prominent players. Serhiy is basically finished his career very recently, but before he did, he was still playing actively, and he opened a small craft, high-quality wine manufacturing in the Transcarpathian region, about 250 kilometers from here. And as really trying to keep the good technology, he was buying and using wine barrels. And suddenly we got in touch with him, and suddenly we got a good chemistry. We jumped into the car, went through the mountain pass in the Carpathian Mountains, saw what Serhiy is doing, and actually next day we were already happy owners of barrels fresh out of his wine. And we started our own program with spontaneous fermentation, the Belgian style. It's a lambic style. We are basically using wild yeast. We have now probably about 50 plus 220-liter wine barrels. Some of them are from hard alcohol, so it's just infusion of ready beer. But we do have now a number of barrels in separate cellar, which are impregnated by yeast from the package, which is a mixture of different yeast and bacteria. And also we used some of the good lambics as a starter to try to experiment with this. It's pretty much a technological play for us, not a commercial program. And we have a lot of fun looking at what happens with spontaneous fermentation in our cellar. Unfortunately, we don't have enough space here to increase this program, but we are playing and enjoying it. And our first lambic style beer is already almost 7 to 8 months old, and we are tasting it every couple of weeks to see where it's going. And so far we are enjoying this. It's going in a good direction. It's very much experiment based. It's very much out of our control almost, but that makes a fun part of it. Okay, over to Dima, and I'll be back in a couple of minutes and commenting on your comments. Скажи, що ти робиш? Просто поговориш, типу, що.
So our filtration will start at in 1 minute. The first wort is almost ready, and we will collect it. And start to heat and prepare to the boiling. So, okay, the filtration is started.
And just for information, Dima was supposed to be now in Turkey, training for his triathlon competition. There was supposed to be a sport camp in Alanya on the south coast of in Turkey. I think it had to be a group of about 20 amateurs and age groupers, it's you know, and I was supposed to be in Belgium, and part of our Brew team was supposed to be on vacation because we used the quiet time in winter to try to go to maybe a warmer place, because normally when we start brewing in April or end of March, we are stocking up normally for season. Just for your information, Lviv is a 800,000 people city in West Ukraine, only 70 kilometers from the Polish border. There is no active fighting here, although some of the smaller airports around Lviv were bombed the first day of the first hours of the attack. The city life is almost as usual. The railway stations are flooded with people who are getting here from Central and East Ukraine. We have hundreds of volunteers, and we have many shelters for people to sleep, and the volunteers, including our company, feeding thousands of people who are either going to stay in Lviv to breathe in and out a little bit after the long and troublesome road. Or some of them are on the way to the border crossings to Europe. I want to use this opportunity to thank our brothers from Poland. It's been absolutely touching, absolutely tremendously touching how Poland reacted to the humanitarian crisis we face here. My wife is actually, my wife and my daughter, they are now in Spain with good friends in Catalonia. And they crossed here by train from Lviv to Przemysl. And the way the Ukrainians are greeted at the Polish side is absolutely supportive and really, really touching. Thank you. Thank you. For people landing on the Polish side, there is all kinds of support. Volunteers are driving people to homes of Polish families, providing you with all the necessities, telephone cards. In many countries in East and in Central Europe, it's free for Ukrainians to travel to find further refuge in countries like Italy or Spain. You can. It's a humanitarian effort that Europe has not seen in many years. We all expect that this will end soon. On one hand, we might still be living our life of only 14 days ago, when everything was very calm and life as usual. We were all thinking about the troubles that COVID pandemic gives us. We were just going in Ukraine. We were just going on a downward slope from another peak, which peaked around between 10th and 20th of February. We were expecting this to end, and we were expecting to slowly come out of the lowest point of the year from the point of view of beer consumption and restaurant visiting. In our cycle, the best months of the year are January, because of the first days. It's like a New Year celebration. Also, Ukraine still celebrates Christmas early January. And Lviv, being a touristic place, welcomes thousands of visitors, and that's why the restaurants are packed, lots of guests. And so January is one of the really a top month here. Next one is May. We have a long vacation period in the first 10 days of May, and it coincides with many street festivals, beer, coffee festivals, music festivals. And again, lots of people come over, and it's the end of colder season. So May is number 2 in the month. Then we have normally a very good summertime, and then it peaks in August, because 24th of August is Ukraine's Independence Day, and that's also a couple of long weekend. So lots of people try to close the summer vacation with a visit to Lviv, and it's again crowded with people. And what we as brewers do, October is still quite an active month, because people already go through the psychological trauma of summer, which is ended, and they go slowly back to normal after summer. The kids are in school by then, and October is still quite warm, can be plus 20 Celsius outside, so it's a good month. We as a brewery then, we don't stop brewing when the season goes down, but we being a small size brewery, we have to stock up a little bit, even late late in the year, for the beer to be sitting in the warehouse for a couple of months. We start brewing end of November and in December and in January and in February. And we put the beer in the warehouse. Normally we choose styles that benefit from aging. And then normally in the beginning of February and sometimes partly in March, we do some renovations and some maintenance at the brewery. We stop for a week or two to change things, etc. And then we are actively in selling season and also tapping into our warehouse that we put over end of year and beginning of year months. This year is going to be different. We're going to be sitting on some stock of beer. It's okay. We'll soon be trying to contact distributors across the world to try to sell some part of that beer. It's not for the benefit of the business, but it's partly for the benefit of the humanitarian aid, because we don't want to sit on this beer forever. We'll brew again when this war is won. And also partly to support the families of the brewers, because while the brewers are trained in the military exercises, they still have families that have to be supported. So we'll be looking to turn some part of our stock into money and contacting distributors around the world. We also don't. It's also not the time to demand some kind of support from the state, because we completely understand that all the money, all the mobilization goes towards fighting, goes towards the support of the armed forces. Armed forces get tremendous support from the population. Also, many people from international, many people from anywhere, the Ukrainians from Canada and the US. People, Europeans, people in US, which are non-Ukrainians, sending money, supporting as much as they can. Poland has eased the entrance of humanitarian aid. It's much easier now to enter Ukraine if you are entering with medicine or with defensive weapons. We still have a prohibition for men, which I completely support, to leave country if you are aged between 18 and 60. First of all, you cannot leave because there are no planes, which is easy. And also you cannot leave because you can be mobilized if you are 18 to 60, which is absolutely normal and good thing to do. But also for truck drivers, it was a couple of days difficulties because of this law, but now the government relaxed this, and truck drivers who leave with some goods or empty and go back from Poland or from Hungary or some other countries, they can leave and go back with humanitarian aid. I see at the comments our geography is even wider than I thought. I mentioned Reunion Island. We have many people now from Australia asking, some of you are asking if it's possible to use the Putin Further label. Yes, it can be used. By the way, this label is created by a good, famous Ukrainian artist. It's not our creation. We commissioned Andriy Yermolenko, not only for this label, but he also made, I think in total 4 labels for us. And the label of Putin Further, you can Google it, or you can look at our website. We even put it out in high resolution for people to use for their takes on this beer and use the recipe as well. It depicts the fake president of the fake country with a fake prime minister on his lap. Is surrounded by nuclear bombs, by bloody fake humanitarian convoys, which were actually carrying guns to the east of Ukraine, by a picture, by a painting of a former president of Ukraine, which is now in refuge in Russia. Viktor Yanukovych. So it puts together the recent history of Russia and Ukraine, including the annexation of Crimea and the war in the east of Ukraine. I'll be with you in 3 to 5 minutes. If you guys have questions, we will try to answer those questions, if not immediately, because I'm talking and Dima is brewing. So we don't always see your questions online. But once you put your questions in Instagram or Facebook or probably on YouTube, we will be able to answer them as we continue the brewing now. See you in 3 to 5 minutes. А ти можеш тут робити? Тут щось робити.
Так, такий. Але ми розбираємо. Може 8,5 збираємо. Першого сусла багато ми збираємо. Менше. Я думаю, десь на 12 хвилин по кінці. Тобто, хочеш сьогодні кави? Каву пити?
Okay, so we are back here. We are still filtering. Yeah. Yes.
Will be
Takes what?
the process for next 1.5 hours.
Okay. We will be filtering for like 1.5 hours more. For the non-brewing community, this is when the mixture of of grains and water in this tank, it's the liquid part goes through the holes in the false bottom and becomes beer in the future. The grain will stay here and then it will be pumped out, and one of the farmers will pick it up, and we will continue to work with wort with our grains. A few things about the brewery, like technical things for those who are interested to listen to this. Yeah, before I do this, just we have here Elizabeth Lesoir, our first brewer. She's in Belgium. Liz has been listening to us, and maybe she'll be coming back. If she wants to say something from Belgium, we would welcome it. I know Corey McGuinness, our brewer, who joined us after Liz. Corey is watching us, and he will be ready to maybe say a few words on his part. He's probably in New York, but Corey will tell himself where he is and what he's doing now, and maybe he will say a few things about remembering the times in Ukraine. He was with us for 2.5 years, and many things and processes in the brewery that Liz and Corey instilled here, they are still here. We are still following many things that we started with and continued with Corey. So we have a bit of, in our brewing genes, we have a bit of Belgium, we have a bit of US, and we have a bit of Germany. Basically, we love all the beers, but most brewers probably it's maybe a far shot, but most brewers still prefer simple beers to super fancy beers, simple lager or simple ale. And that's what we here believe, that first thing first, the basic blonde ale or basic blonde lager, not too hopped, very balanced in terms of maltiness, sweetness, and bitterness and freshness, is the base that every small brewer has to start with, and then elaborate into more hoppier or fancier or any other beers. Because once the base is fine, everything else will be fine. The boiling capacity of our boiling part is very small. It's a tiny. We can probably boil 2.2 thousand liters. So it's a small brew house. We have, I think we have 12 40 hectare tanks. Each of them is hosting two boiling batches, and we have 12 60 hectare tanks, each of them hosting 3 batches. The most we did in a row, batches in a row, I think it was 5, but I was really working non-stop without putting off the steam generator. Our steam generator is 300 kilograms of steam per hour. We are almost signing a contract for a stronger one, because this one that we have now has been taking us through 7 years of non-stop brewing, and it also took us a bit of an effort to put our head around it in terms of cleaning the water and operating it, etc. With the current gas crisis that we faced last couple of months, we were doing some calculations about which steam generator to buy next, whether it's going to be gas or it's going to be electricity. Eventually, we decided that this would be a gas one, but Corey, you are online. Can you hear me? So we have here at the same time, we have Corey McGuinness and we have Elizabeth Dessoir. If any of you want to speak, please do. Liz will be watching us because she's in the office. Hello, Liz. Now, can you hear us, Corey McGuinness? Okay, Corey needs a minute. No problem, Corey. We can wait for you. Get your coffee ready. It's early morning in the US, most probably on the East Coast, and coffee is ready. Coffee is ready, and it's a twist of fate that two of our former brewers are here on this brew online, and our current head brewer is now at the military training camp preparing to, and most of the brew team is also there training how to fight off the enemy if we have the enemy at our door here. Okay, so I'd like okay, so we have Corey on Zoom, correct? Corey, can you give us a signal that you hear us and you can say something? Let me talk to Corey quickly. Okay, so Corey will join us when he can. He's getting ready. And while Corey is getting ready, I will tell you about my favorite beer here in Pravda. I'm not a brewer by education, which is a sad fact, you know. I wish I was. Yeah. Well, but I know very well what kind of beer I love most. You know, it's I love a beer okay. You know, we are in a country where craft beer and like fancier beer is not very popular, and many people sometimes say, you know, I don't like this beer, or I don't like dark beer, or I'm not a big fan of stronger beers, or bitter beers, or any other beers. You know, people get this idea in their heads that they don't like a specific beer. We get to have a lot of lectures about craft beer in Kyiv, the capital city, in Odessa, and we talk to general public, to clients of the restaurants where our beer is served, and our point in return is always like this: all alcohol, and specifically beer, is something very context related, which means, a good example is, you know, before I always, you know, when I was on vacations, I always used to bring a bottle or two. You know, if you're in Italy, you bring back Italian wine. I once brought a bottle of rum from Seychelles, or wine from Spain, or Geneva from Holland. But then you are home and you think, oh, it's such a wonderful thing to have. I know I will try to relive the memories of place and time where I drank this. And then you sit down, you drink this, and suddenly it's out of context. It's not something you really enjoy, you know. And then you think, okay, what do I normally drink here? And then sometimes it's vodka, sometimes it's beer, sometimes it's something that you would normally drink. And from that time, I leave alcohol drinks in their own context. So in Italy, I would drink Italian wine, and in the UK, I would probably drink cask beer, or in Scotland, it's probably some whiskeys. But what I mean is, sometimes to like something, to like drinking or consuming something or eating something, you just need to change the context. You don't have to say, oh, I dislike dark beer. You know? Probably sometimes it's good to change the situation you are drinking dark beer in. You know, you don't drink it after you ran 10 kilometers in the heat of the day. You would probably want some very basic light beer. But if you talk about Imperial Stout, you probably should try it next to your fireplace on an autumn evening. And then maybe the context will be much better suited. And then you will actually love all kinds of beer, because by not selectively not liking something, you are kind of cutting your spectrum, cutting your options. And craft beer is has such a wonderful variety of tastes and aromas and stories behind, that you don't want to deprive yourself something in this super world. Okay, now, do we have our celebrity of today, Corey McGuinness? Not yet, but he will join. What a good surname for a brewer, isn't it? Okay.
Hello, I'm here.
Hey. Okay. Mr. McGuinness, tell us something.
It's about 7 a.m. here in New York. I'm drinking some tea, some chai.
Okay.
Yeah, but no, so for all of you that are watching, thank you so much I've been the one who's I simplified the recipes and translated them down. But as Yuri said, yeah, I was with Pravda, what, a little over 2.5 years, almost 3. Yeah, kind of came there literally on a whim. Yuri and we have a mutual brewing friend out of the Netherlands, Rule, who I had met at a festival in Oregon. I'm from Portland, Oregon, originally. And I had told him it had been my dream to brew outside of the US. And lo and behold, about a year later, he gets me in touch with Yuri. And the rest is history, pretty much at that point. Yeah.
Corey is helping us to, strengthen our message to the international brewing community. The message is that, Ukraine has seldom been on the news in a good context. I think we have to say that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's always last decades it was either Chernobyl or Crimea. Now it's a war. But to me, when we give lectures here about craft beer in Ukraine to people who are only used to 2 or 3 sorts of beer, they find like mass produced beer. We keep saying something that maybe sounds strange sometimes. To me, like an amateur sportsman, to me, craft beer and mass sport is almost identical in nature. It's a kind of marker of development, kind of normal life and normality and development. If you see many people running or cycling in the park, and the same thing happens with craft beer. If craft beer gains momentum in a certain country, this is a kind of a message that people are already past their basic needs about eating, sleeping, and living. People can try other new things. This means people are traveling, thanks to cheaper travels by Ryanair or Wizz or other cheaper airlines. They're picking up what other countries are doing, the US, Europe, etc. And to craft beer is a kind of a signal of development, of better life. I know it may sound weird to speak about development and better life now from the country where civilians are now might be dying as we speak, because there are people, the Russian troops are shelling residential areas now, and there was a direct fighting of the Ukrainian army. But in the run-up to this, actually, probably one of the reasons of this war is that Putin and the Russian Empire cannot stand a developing democratic neighbor as its neighbor, because it endangers the existence of that empire. It makes it vulnerable. It makes it a colossus on weak legs. It signals the Russian brothers, that people who look like them, who speak a language which is slightly similar, and part of Ukraine speaks outright Russian, which will pretty soon change. They could do something, they could go through the street protests, they could make it to the end, they could throw out the corrupt president, they could build a fledgling democracy here, and this whole thing, it puts the existing Russian Empire under a big question mark. If this was happening somewhere in, if we were developing on the territory of South America or something, far away from Russia, speaking a different language, having different values, having different everything, and a separated history, Russia wouldn't care. And one of the reasons is that they are in danger, and they feel this danger, and they decided to attack a democratic country in the 21st century with on-ground assault. Still, if we, on the other hand, our last craft beer and vinyl music festival, the #9 festival in our history, and we've been doing these festivals for 5 or 6 years. It already gathered at this premise where we are now. Actually, the brewery is a part of a former glass factory, which is now gentrified, and now it's a brewery, a bakery, and offices, and even t-shirt manufacturing. The last festival gathered 20,000 people of craft beer lovers over a long weekend period. So our beer has collected probably, I don't remember, 14 or 15 international awards in Czech Republic, and Brussels Beer Challenge, and European Beer Star. We also have other brewers like Varvar, or like Underwood, or Tsipa, or Kumpel, or Brew, or many other brewers in Ukraine that are brewing good beer. And we're all joining forces now under the slogan Brew for Ukraine, opening recipes, opening visuals, and asking for support to the Ukrainian army, and asking for support of those people who just lost their homes. Every 2-3 hours, I get a message because I was born here, but I grew up in Kiev, and my family is also partly from the far east of Ukraine, from Donetsk area, Kramatorsk, which is under control of Ukraine. I have messages from people from central and east Ukraine. Is there a place to sleep? Can we host 2 people with 3 kids? Can we do this? Can we do that? Can you help us with driving people to the border? So we are right in the middle of a sad, but in some way historical moment. All this suffering will never be forgotten. We have new Ukrainian and new European heroes being formed right now. We have an airplane pilot who's downed already 30 plus of enemy aircraft, and that's making military history in a way. And it's not only on Ukrainian scale, but on the world scale. We have 13 warrior soldiers who defended the Snake Island in the south of Ukraine. And they sent the Russian vessel to just basically go and park themselves. They would not surrender. And we have people who did IT jobs, people who did doctor jobs, who are now manning the humanitarian corridors, trying to evacuate people from war area. We have a pretty strong IT industry, which is now doing the attacks hacking attacks towards the Russian sites. We have a whole army of people who are trying to tell the truth to the Russians. It's too late to say the truth to Russians, yeah, because it was their kind of conformity to what is happening. They're being afraid to stand against the fake leader that actually led to him being stronger and stronger. And one day, two weeks ago, being strong enough to come to attack Ukraine. They're gonna bear that responsibility. They're gonna share that responsibility, because every dollar that's spent, even by international companies, spent in Russia, spent in taxes, every of these dollars is bloody dollar now used to shell the residential buildings in Ukraine, kill civilians, kill kids. We will come out of this stronger, that's for sure. the Ukrainians are going through the very difficult and very decisive moment. We all feel there is no way back. We all feel that we are on the edge of a new world. We have been asking for Europe for too long, to accept us as a EU member. We have actually watched how, for example, people in the Netherlands were tricked into voting against Ukraine being a EU member by the Russian propaganda several years ago. We have seen Germany being almost collaborationists with the Russian government by approving the Nord Stream, knowing very well that there is a war in the east of Ukraine since 2014. There was too much collaboration on behalf of Europe. There was too much understanding Putin, trying to understand Putin, too much victim complex of saying, okay, these guys are stronger anyway than us. We anyway need Russian gas. We anyway need Russian oil. And all this is going to end. Unfortunately, it takes Ukrainian lives. And it will take more lives, unfortunately, because it's not going to stop in the next hour. It may not even stop in 3 months. Russia is not going to disappear. It is going to disappear as a perceivably strong empire that everybody was afraid of. It was going to disappear as the unquestioned military force that can do whatever it can to bully its neighbors into obedience. But it's stopping now. I think there will be a strong separatist movement in Russia because many people will want to distance themselves from what's happening now. They want to be gaining back independence. Japan has already said that Kuril Islands in the east are the Japanese territory. And to me, this is only the beginning. The world is changing as we speak now, and it will be different in a week from now, and it will be very different in a month from now. And it will definitely be very, very different in a year from now. One thing I wanted to add, some people call Pravda brewery a political brewery because of our labels with Putin or Angela Merkel, or we even have labels with Obama and Trudeau. And I want to say, no, we are not political. We are just common citizens of this country, and we know very well that there are some world leaders that can influence the way we live here. They can make a difference. They can either do something that's good to the world's good, that's good for democracy, that's good for justice. They can do something, or they can just do nothing. And we are not doing political labels for the hype of it. Yeah. Believe me, all the funny labels that we have, or provocative labels, contain these bottles do contain good beer. Even Putin Huilo has won some medal at one of the Czech beer competitions. The Ukrainian Imperial Stout has won medals in Brussels, so it's a good beer. We're not ashamed of this. It's not for labels only. And actually, we always make beer first, and then we think about the label. But as citizens here, we cannot pass by the fact what's going on in the world that concerns us. Because I think Germany has done a fair negative bit to prevent Ukraine to entering on the path to the European Union. And if you think that they could have done more, and if you think that Angela Merkel could have done more, specifically being a politician, and she could have been less of a Putin verstehe, trying to understand the Putin ways, maybe we would not even have this what is happening in Ukraine now. Okay, it's easy to say what if, but I'm just trying to explain why we have some of the labels the way they are. Plus, when we set up the brewery in the beginning, we knew we would be exporting our beer, and we are exporting. Well, in 2021, we did a couple of exports to Germany and Austria through our friends and partners, a distributor company called Kalea, based in Salzburg. And knowing that my beer is going to be on the tables of Europeans or in the UK or in Germany, and craft beer is more expensive. It costs compared to like cheap beer, which could cost like €0.5. It can cost imported beer from Ukraine could cost €3 or €3.5 on shelf. And if I as a small brewer can send some kind of small message on my label, if I can use that label as a small kind of Twitter or Facebook message, I would use it. Why not? That's why we have put into a label which tells on the label in English why we have that label. We have Frau Ribbentrop label devoted to Angela Merkel, and we explain on this label why this is so. And if I send 5,000 bottles to Germany, I want to make sure that every person who spends €3 or €3.5 for that bottle, or €4, whatever, for that bottle, he or she will already be reading the label. Yeah? Because label is part of that beer. It's part of the story, part of our story as a brewery, and part of this beer, as a technological story, and also part of our position as Ukrainians, why we do that. That is my explanation of some of our labels. We will have more labels like this in the making. All we want to do now is we want our army to finish the job it's doing very well last 2 weeks. And we want to return to peaceful life. We want to make beer. We want to enjoy our beer, and we want to enjoy it here in Ukraine. We want to enjoy it in Italy, in Belgium, in the UK, in Germany, in Spain. We want to enjoy it in the US and in Australia. And of course, we want to enjoy it on the beautiful Reunion Island. One of my ideas before, 1 or 2 years ago, was to have a good tour of exotic locations, trying to, because how we actually, it's probably valid for every small brewer, but how we imagine our recipe starts with imagining the context, imagining the place and occasion when you consume your beer. You imagine a sunlit terrace on the beach, or you imagine an evening with friends when you just want to enjoy one glass of beer, or you imagine something that you sit down for 3 or 4 hours and you're just drinking one sort of beer. So we really like to imagine the context first, and then from the context you decide on your alcohol level, you decide on the color of your beer, and then you decide on whether you want to use spices or not, to what extent you want to use spices, whether you want to be very prominent or you want to be a little bit hidden and just hint that they are there. And from that, you start to compose the malt bill and the hops and all the rest. So it really starts with a lifestyle of consuming that sort of beer. So that's why we really want to brew beer in Scandinavia. We want to brew beer that would be very good for more cold climate. We want to brew beer on the equator. We want to brew beer in the Seychelles, Mauritius, and Reunion. There is even a small island. I'm not sure they have a brewery, but it's part of, I think, Mauritius, which is my bucket, which is very heavy on my bucket list, top high on my bucket list. It's called Rodriguez Island. We want to brew beer in Japan. We want to brew beer in Ushuaia, because every time every time when you decide what kind of beer to brew, it's a small research into geopolitics. It's a research into what botanical thing, what spice, local thing you can use. Could there be a local berry or or something seasonal? Maybe it could be something on the edge between beer and wine, or is it something you try to understand the lifestyle of people, how they live, whether it's agriculture of growing things, or is it agriculture of raising animals, or is it do you have a lot of tropical fruits there? I actually love the story. I think the style is called it's Brazilian one. If I'm not mistaken, it's one of the newer Brazilian beer styles called Saint Catarina Sour. Anybody heard of this? It's like because of large German community in the south of Brazil. And correct me if I'm wrong. They've been brewing like Berliner Weiss style beer, but adding local fruits that grow there, thanks to the climate. And finally, it ended up formatting and creating a new beer style called Saint Catarina Sour because of the name of the province. And this is something that is very inspiring because it's part of the story, it's part of the heritage, history, geography, climate, and everything. And this is why we allow the international collaborations, because there's always a story behind. The beer which we had to brew in Brussels only 4 or 5 days ago was supposed to be a kolos beer. Kolos in Ukrainian, it's it's grain. Bernard, hey. So we have Bernard here. Hello.
Yes.
Hey, hello. Good to see you, man.
Yes, good to see you too.
I don't know. Are you driving somewhere?
Yes, I have a training somewhere in Flanders.
Okay. So we have the guilty one here. We have Bernard Lebuc, whose beer inspired me to open Pravda one day. Bernard, good to see you.
Good to see you too, Yuri. Yeah.
I'm actually telling the story of our collaboration of Kolos.
Yes.
And if you because we just had Corey online, if you can spare a minute and if your connection allows it, maybe you can tell us a few sentences about the collaboration of Kolos, about what kind of beer it is.
Well, it's a kind of beer based on cereal. It is actually in Belgium we should call it a white beer. It's really a beer to celebrate it's a symbolic beer for Ukraine because Ukraine provides so much cereal to Europe. So I don't know, we have a barley, we have spelt, and I don't know the name of the other cereals that they are in this beer. It's really a summer beer. It's between a Belgian white beer and a beer from Ukraine with Ukrainian hops.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much. We are using Ukrainian hop called Zahrava.
Yes, Zahrava.
Yeah.
Sorry, I forgot about the name of Zahrava, but
it's
I remember now. Yeah.
It's. I was just saying, like 20 minutes before, or maybe a bit earlier, I was just telling that Zahrava gives this beer this kind of slightly exotic for the current nose. Here, the aroma of a kind of a primitive aroma, a little bit ancient kind of hop, a little bit earthy, grassy. It's a little, in a positive way, an ancient kind of thing. It was probably what most hops smelled like before there was a heavy scientific selection and where smells are kind of in a good way manipulated into something more resiny or something more piney or something even more citrusy or exotic. Yeah, that's
Yes, the Skivakulas tastes actually like a genuine white beer from Belgium. Of course, there was a big evolution on the Belgian white beers with coriander, with orange. But this is a very genuine and old style white beer.
okay. Super.
Very
Thank you very
rustic.
much. Thank you, Bernard. Thank you. We are actually, just for those who recently joined, we are brewing, remembering our Belgian inspiration. We are brewing beer on the basis of Belgian yeast, a table beer, an ale, which will end up with a gravity of 12 plus percent. And will end up with the alcohol level of maybe 4.5 or maybe a little bit more. And we will bottle this beer in 3 weeks when it's ready from the tank, and we expect this to be fully ready, re-fermented in the bottle in about 5 weeks from now. And we hope that this beer will be, we will drink this beer in a country that by that time has won the war. We will, of course, think about the special label for this beer, because we have basically never brewed beer in a war, except that first batch which we brewed exactly when the attack started. So we hope for a victory soon.
Slava Ukraina.
Okay, now thank you very much, Bernard. We will continue this for another roughly for another 20 to 30 minutes. We welcome your questions. We cannot be answering questions online because I do the talking. Dima is doing the brewing. We have a small team behind the scenes which are making sure that all the stream is working. I will soon show you the. You can, if you have extra questions. I just saw the question whether the rabbit food is ended up in any beer. No, it has not ended up in any beer. Nobody, all the brewers were warned, and this has never reached any beer. I see the questions whether our beers will be brewed in Australia. Yes, they will be. I think Bacchus Brewing, Rick, I think, might be watching us, or if not, we are corresponding to each other. Also refreshing the information. We opened our top recipes and some graphic visual material for our labels, which are free to use by anyone. Sign up for Pravda Brewery page. There is also a page called Pravda Beer Theater. And you can always ask questions on the Facebook or Instagram directly. I will see, or Dima will see these questions. We can always come back with answers. I will soon. You can click on my Facebook page. It's Yuri Zastavny. I'll show you in a minute how it looks like. Every day I'm doing 1 or 2 posts and saying something about the developments of the war and saying something on our Ukrainian small brewers movement to unite brewers of the world around our situation here. I'll be back with you in 3 to 4 minutes. Hold with us if you can. If not, thanks anyway for the support. We'll be continuing for another 20 to 25 minutes. And we'll be having a quick look at the questions and trying to answer them online as we go. Now it's 3 to 4 minute break. See you soon. Thank you very much.
Да. Не вода. It was a small trouble with electricity.
Okay, so back here, Yuri from Pravda. For those who just joined, just reminding that Corey McGuinness, former brewer, head brewer of Pravda, is here online. He's going to leave us soon, but Corey is ready to say a few words in support. Corey is really helping tremendously to raise awareness about our situation here. He's helping to support our project of Victory Brews. It's the brews, the batches that we do in war condition in the city of Lviv at the Pravda Brewery. We are encouraging brewers to drop in here, give us a word of support, do our recipes, which are open on our website, use our visuals, and donate to the Ukrainian army. Corey, would you like to add something?
Yeah, no. Hello, everyone from New York. Thank you so much tremendously for your support. I know it's been kind of a hastily put together as far as trying to do this, being time so imperative. So I appreciate everyone being patient with getting everything translated and simplified. Please reach out to myself or Yuri as far as brewing questions. I know a lot of you have come with questions in regards to changing a little bit of labels or things like that. It's perfectly okay. As far as ingredients and things like that, totally cool to substitute things. It's more about your support and your passion for this and donations for Ukrainian army and for Ukraine. Ukrainians, my time there was amazing. A lot of times it feels like a dream when I think about it. And there, I've lived in places like North Carolina with Southern hospitality, but there's nothing like Ukrainian hospitality. Yuri and everyone there opened up their arms to me, this lonely American that came over, I think not knowing what to expect. And it was one of the best experiences of my life. And Ukraine, I may not be Ukrainian by blood, but it is there in my heart fully. And I appreciate everyone's support. And yeah, thank you. Again, please reach out with any questions. I'm available. There's a Facebook group that's you can join, and I'm on Instagram and Facebook and everything. So thank you, Yuri. Thank you for doing this. Slava Ukraini.
Thank you, Corey. Just want to show this photograph here. This is the photograph of 18th May 2015. Corey, the taxi driver brought Corey somewhere to the far end of the market square. You can see how beautiful this old town is. And this is the moment when Corey crossed entered the door of Pravda Beer Theater. When we still had a full production there. Corey, I invited you to join our craft beer and the new music festival. The dates might be reconsidered a little bit, but we will do this. We will do it in a country that wins the war. You will be surprised on how many things changed. Some things changed to the better. We understand some of our basic things much better than before. We still have some things that are fucked up. The floor at this brewery here where we are now is a total disaster. And it's one of the big projects I'm trying to understand how we can correct this without actually throwing out all the equipment to the street, to the outside for a couple of months, and stopping. So we have our challenges. But we'll be fine. And,
yes.
Regardless of everything that's going on now, I will have a plan of a new brewery, a bigger brewery, on a greenfield location, maybe not far from here. And I want to have that plan in my head and in Igor's head by the end of this year. It might take 1 or 2 years to plan, but we're already beginning to plan. Because we expect that once this is all over, it will be a different country. People have so much now self-respect, so much unification, so much quest, longing for a better life. to me, craft beer is an indispensable part of it. And I think we are on a good way to this. When it's all over, we'll be on a good path.
Yeah, I agree. I can't wait to be there again. See ya.
Let me have a look. Yeah, we start boiling. Corey, thank you very much for joining. Just start to wrap up a little bit. The whole process is still gonna take good maybe 2 hours. We are not gonna keep you for this long. We are slowly starting to boil. Yeah, okay. We collecting water from the filter tank into the boiling tank. It will take, as I said, it takes us 2 hours more to do. I really want to thank everyone who participated, who just dropped in even for 5 minutes or 10 minutes to support. It's a huge challenge to you know, we have people joining from Indian Ocean, from South America, from Australia, from Scandinavia, from all across the world. It's very inspiring to have this camaraderie of craft brewers and beer lovers to support us in this way. We on the website of Pravda, there is a place where people can donate. We do not have much space for victory series, but we at least have, this is the first victory brew. We're gonna have maybe second and third and maybe fourth if we have space. As you understand, it's not easy. We have to work with the supplies we have here and now at the brewery because the roads are pretty much blocked. I don't think we can replenish our supplies of hops, grains, and empty bottles now, because of the roadblocks, and it's not something that we want to. We don't want to put additional stress on the roads and on the police and on everything. Now we want the roads to be free for refugees, so we will have to count what we have here and do with what we have here. Thank you very much. I hope to see you guys again for our next Victory Brew. If you have questions, there are some ways to ask them. Sign up for Pravda page, Pravda Brewery or Pravda Beer Theater. It's the same business. Pravda Brewery is the brewery where we are now. Pravda Beer Theater is our big restaurant in the city center, but it's all the same communication effort. If somebody has a question to me, I have here my, okay, so here's for Zoom. I'm Yuri Zastavny, Pravda Brewery, and this is how my name is on the Facebook. So please ask questions there in the Facebook Messenger. It's the easiest way. Here's for Instagram, Yuri Zastavny. And if I don't know the answer immediately, I have my brew team who will, and we have our head brewer, Igor Chertov, who will ask technological questions. And Corey is really kindly agreed to ask us with conversions to the US units and to smaller or bigger batch sizes for our recipes. Thank you very much again. We'll be online again, and we'll be updating you guys on the Facebook and Instagram on what we do next in Ukraine. Thank you for support.